Conflict and interpersonal communication go hand in hand. Conflict is often thought of as a negative interaction or conversation had with two people. We, through this essay, learn that the ways that conflict can be beneficial and positive. In this essay, I am going to be explaining the connections between the two through personal and factual information, as well as the 5 different ways to manage conflict in public and private settings. To start off, I will be discussing how beneficial that conflict can be. Conflict can be beneficial in many different aspects, such as that conflict can create friendships through comparison if you have something in common with someone that you didn't know about, or it is you like the same football team or the same video games. I feel there are a lot of friendships that are formed this way. This is a positive outcome from conflict because both parties wasn't hurt mentally or physically, and it created something that can potentially last a lifetime. Another positive outcome of conflict is accommodation. This is a sense that can be something as simple as someone being allergic to peanuts and you not serving them to ensure that they are okay and happy and don't get hurt, as well as making them feel welcome and not uncomfortable. But on the contrary, there can be obvious negatives associated with conflict, as people, I think, associate conflict with damaging and negative impacts on relationships. I think that conflict can be damaging if not managed properly, such as in a situation where collaboration is necessary, and one or both parties refuse to work together or are working poorly together. This will neither help the collaboration or the relationship of the two who are suspected to be collaborating. Conflict can also be damaging if, let's say, something happens in a first impression situation and you don't agree on something minor that would be normally looked over, but with one's attitude and body language showing that they are clearly hung up on the conflict, that can ruin the first impression, and it's really bad for the remainder of the relationship. The example applies to many situations such as interviews and other business situations or simple scenarios such as meeting someone for the first time. For our first conflict management option, we will have competing. Competing is a type of management where you are seeing one thing that is your idea or whatever the competition is over is correct and the only right option, and you want to win. Or in other words, you have your side picked to be the right one. The next management technique I would like to discuss is avoidance. This type of management is showing little to no concern in the conflict, whether you are trying to avoid the conflict altogether or let the problem fizzle out all on its own. I think that this type of management is typically used when one side sees the conflict as not as important, or to put it in easier terms, one party doesn't think that the problem is really enough worth fighting over that they will hope that the problem will burn out or the other party will let it go. From personal experience, the type of management I feel, if not done right, can cause more problems than just dealing with the conflict. Our next management technique is accommodation. This type of management involves one party feeling very strongly about others' point of view. So to protect the other party's feelings, one will often agree or put their feelings or argument aside to appease the other party and to dissolve the conflict without having to compete. So to make a long story short, you will put your feelings to the side and make your partner or whomever you have the conflict with to have the right of way. Compromising is the next management tool for conflicts. This is where both parties identify their needs and both sacrifice something in order to resolve the conflict. Collaboration will be the next type of conflict management we'll be looking into. This is where both parties show interest in one another's concerns and solve the conflict together. This type of conflict I associate the most with work. Two people who are placed with a task that needs to be resolved and they use both of their points to solve and resolve the conflict. Before watching the conflict management video and other reading material, felt that I had a pretty well conflict management. But after watching and reviewing the material, I found that I could probably maintain and resolve my conflicts a little better. I tend to use the competitive type of conflict management, which probably isn't the best for every situation. But I tend to not to like to admit that I am wrong in situations where there are two options or a conflict. The biggest factor for me, though, is who I am speaking to and what my relationship is with said person. I think that I have got many of my conflict management skills from my parents, as they were the ones who I spent most of the time with in my developing years and the ones I had the most conflicts during with that time. To reflect on one of my personal experiences with conflict, I'm going to be using an example with my significant other. With her, I tend to do more compromising and collaboration, which in this case of our relationship are healthy types of conflict. These allow us to use and rely on each other to improve our relationship and work through conflicts. For me, it makes me feel well to know that some of my compromises allow her to be happy and vice versa. From the Managing Conflicts video in our online textbook portion of the reading material, I found that 5 conflict maintenance tools very helpful after reading it. I feel that it will help me in my future conflicts, and then in my day-to-day life, I'll be able to utilize these skills now and for all of my social conflicts to come.